Gina Carano and the Walt Disney Company are firing shots back and forth. Dank Ferrick, we say here on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place. I am here with my my paralegal, Mr. Vash Sky. Vash, can I write off my purchases on Fortnite as a business expense if we have a gaming channel?
Ooh, let me get back to you on that.
Let's shift. Let's talk about this story out of That Park Place from John Trent. Gina Carano responds to Disney's motion to dismiss her lawsuit. Disney has confirmed what has been known all along. This April 12th, from That Park Place, Gina Carano issued a response to the Walt Disney Company's motion to dismiss her lawsuit against them. Hey, look, there she is. She's smiling. She's happy. Carano filed her lawsuit back in February with the suit detailing it is a civil action arising from defendants' wrongful termination of Carano's employment in retaliation for Carano's lawful exercise of her right to speak and express her views. Specifically, defendants under the regime of former Disney CEO Bob Chapek fired Carano because of her posts on various social media platforms, including X. Carano composed and published the posts while she was off duty and away from the workplace. So she didn't get fired for things that she did on the clock. The suit alleged defendants terminated Carano's employment and took other retaliatory actions to limit and deny her future employment opportunities, including but not limited to making maliciously false statements about Carano with the intention of damaging her reputation and thus her ability to find and retain work. We've read through parts of the lawsuit here on the channel, and I gotta say, it was fascinating. We did entire live streams on it, and I still don't think we scratched the surface of everything here. Hey, here's a scene from the Mandalorian season 2. There was a rumor going around that she got a series called Rangers of the New Republic. I think that was fairly well confirmed because Kathleen Kennedy announced it at the Disney Plus Investors Day.
Right.
But now all that seems to have gone away. Vash, would you have watched Rangers of the New Republic?
I think I would have watched Rangers of the New Republic. In fact, some of those storylines were so integral in setting up the future Mandoverse that they had to take some of those plot lines out, stick them in season 3, or at least that's the speculation, because season 3 goes into some tangents there that are like, that's interesting. I mean, there's definitely some world building there that doesn't necessarily coincide with season 3 as a self-contained unit, but is
it is very strange because there's things about pirates and there's things about Navarro being built up as a colony, and apparently those pirates are a bigger deal than what's going on in the show. But also there's this stuff about the Siege of Mandalore. There are moments of it that are kind of fun. There's also paintball fighting on a beach. There's so many things that are just a little bit strange about Mandalorian season 3. It's not as focused, but it also doesn't feel like it's episodic. Those first 2 seasons of Mandalorian seemed episodic, but leading up to something. Whereas now it seems like it's all leading up to something, and maybe there are these moments where you run into little adventures on the way, and it's very confusing. But we want to talk about what the Walt Disney Company said back to Gina Carano, because they finally filed their motion to dismiss earlier this week, arguing Disney makes this motion on the grounds that Disney has a constitutional right not to associate its artistic expression with Carano's speech, such that the First Amendment provides a complete defense to Carano's claims. So they're basically saying our First Amendment rights outweigh her First Amendment rights, and that they have the right not to associate with Gina Carano based entirely off of that, and that firing Gina Carano, and they're saying that they're not firing her. It's been pointed out by Lou Wasserman's Ghost, LW Ghost, as I like to call him. He's pointed out that California law has been made in a way that was intended to protect communists who were attacked by their employers during the blacklisting era, or the Red Scare, or whatever you want to call it. Over in California, they were essentially trying to drive out communists, and so they responded by writing laws that said you can't fire someone for being a communist. Now, that being said, obviously people have fired people who misrepresent the company and things like that. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how this proceeds going forward. Vash, I think you had a little bit of insight on the lawyer whose name is at the top of the Walt Disney Company's motion to dismiss.
Yes, I do have a little bit of information, and I will say that, that didn't necessarily just, yeah, it wasn't limited to one political ideology. Those California laws, those were much more broad and included political ideology or belief systems of a broad nature. The idea was you couldn't be punished by your employer based on what you personally believed, or at least that was the intention of those laws. Anyway, speaking of laws and lawyers and all of these things, interestingly enough, if you look at the motion to dismiss this case right here, I thought that First Amendment claim was a little bit like, I've heard that before. Where have I heard that before? It sounded very familiar to me because, well, it sounded like another case that Disney had filed citing First Amendment claims against, well, Governor Ron DeSantis and the state of Florida. And that was the one that was just, well, as people will know, that was the one that was just dismissed itself.
Yes, it was.
And tossed out. Well, if you looked at the legal filing on there, doing pro hoc vice work for that case on the very last page right there, top of the list, Daniel Petrocelli. Well, that's very interesting. We have heard that name before. So I was like, is this Petrocelli? Sure enough, it is at the top of that motion to dismiss right there, Daniel Petrocelli. Now, people will might not know of him, but they know his work. That is for sure right here. This comes via Variety on August 6, 2021. Disney lawyer Daniel Petrocelli calls Black Widow lawsuit an orchestrated PR campaign. So remember, Chapek received some flack for the company's response to the Scarlett Johansson situation when she was alleging that she was due royalties that weren't that couldn't be preserved with their simultaneous release schedule of this film, both in theaters and on Disney Plus at the time. Daniel says right here, it is obvious that this is a highly orchestrated PR campaign to achieve an outcome that is not obtainable in the lawsuit. No amount of public pressure can change or obscure the explicit contractual commitments. The written contract is clear as a bell. Well, it might have been clear as a bell, but as we know, Disney settled with Scarlett Johansson on that one. However, this gentleman's history goes back even further than that. Jonas, are we familiar with this person on screen right here?
Yes, we've heard of him. He is the former employer of the person who's doing the next Lucasfilm Star Wars series, Leslie Headland. Yeah, she was his scheduler and used to coordinate his schedule with other people, other elites, maybe elites who had their own private island and had lists and things like that. But I don't know what actually happened to this guy, so maybe we should move on from him very quickly.
Yes, we probably should. Well, Daniel Petrocelli, used to represent a Mr. Harvey here, and unfortunately, during his escapades that have been well known right here, and one of those victims came forward and confronted Mr. Weinstein here, and while Petrocelli was representing Harvey at the time, and essentially said that, look, if you ever come out against my client, we'll drag you through the mud by your hair. So that's who Mr. Petrocelli is.
Right.
Right.
I think you're about to say this. Forgive me for stepping on you here. That this is what the victim said that Mr. Petrocelli said, and
yes,
that Mr. Petrocelli declined to comment, which it would be, if it didn't happen, that would be an easy one to deny, of course. Now,
obviously, and look, I'm not saying that, even Harvey is entitled to his constitutional rights for representation. I'm not saying that he's not. Somebody has to represent him, but it's how they're represented, which speaks to maybe the character of this person with these alleged comments.
Right, and I think that he is, especially because he's working pro hoc vice. He must be New York, because he's the guy that was brought in on the DeSantis lawsuit, and that DeSantis lawsuit, we all know how that went for the Disney company. They talked and talked and talked and talked, and then settled it out of court. In the media, it appeared that DeSantis lost and Disney outmaneuvered them. If you only read the papers, you would have thought that Disney won this years ago, when in fact they lost it years ago. And DeSantis has barely changed his position in any way. And eventually Disney had to settle in order to move on. And once they got to the point where they actually realized they needed to do something with their parks, they went ahead and settled this lawsuit so that they could move on. But of course, we want to bring this back to Gina Carano and the case at hand. Now that we understand how Mr. Petrocelli operates, this right here, continuing in the article from That Park Place, interestingly, the motion to dismiss appears to confirm that Carano was fired over her political opinions, and specifically an Instagram post she shared to her Instagram stories. I'm not even going to read everything here because you should go and check out the article. But it is an interesting admission to me for the Walt Disney Company to say, no, it was definitely about her social media posts, to admit that it is one person's First Amendment issue versus a company acting as a person's First Amendment issue. Of course, I think that Citizens United case is probably going to come up under the lens of California employment law here. It will be fascinating to see how this all plays out. I get the feeling that this motion to dismiss is probably not going to be successful, and that we might see this go to discovery sometime in the near future. I don't know how near. I'm hoping it's very near, but probably not that near. Vash, is there anything else we're missing here before we wrap this up?
Well, I just think this is a very it's a very interesting case for a lot of reasons, and we're going to be tracking this on That Park Place and our other forums as much as possible. That is for sure. But it's very interesting how allegedly Harvey Weinstein's former assistant and Leslie Headland co-funded or funded a campaign against Gina Carano in order to get her removed from Lucasfilm in the first place. And now, upon her launching a lawsuit against Disney, it's now Harvey Weinstein's former attorney now attacking Gina Carano through these claims right here. Looking at it, I don't think they necessarily had the strongest case in the world, because at the time that they removed her from Lucasfilm, they said at the time it was for those comments. Remember, folks, never in writing, always in cash. Don't give the reason. Well, they were pretty blunt about that as they tried to virtue signal on this originally. So this is going to be a very interesting case to watch.
What an amazing thing that all these people associate with each other. It's just an amazing coincidence, of course. But we want to throw it to our commenters here. What do you think about this case? Do you think it's going to go forward? Do you think this is the end of it? Do you think Disney will be successful in their motion to dismiss this lawsuit? If you're the judge, let us know in the comment section down below so we can know the news ahead of time. Of course, if you want to know the news ahead of time, like this video, because that helps boost us in the algorithm, and consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.